December 1943. High above a war-torn Europe, an American bomber pilot named Charlie Brown fought for his life. His B-17 Flying Fortress, the B Old Pub, was a wreck. It was his first combat mission. Half his crew were wounded or worse. Their objective had been a factory in Bremen, Germany. But now the only objective was survival. And then, out of the gray winter sky, a German fighter appeared. At its controls was a Luftwaffe ace, a man trained to destroy bombers without a second thought. What happened in the next few minutes was something that, by all the rules of war, should never have happened. The air inside the B-17 was freezing cold, filled with the smell of hydraulic fluid and cordite. The bomber, a Ferengian giant designed to be a fortress in the sky, was barely holding itself together. On the flight from England, a swarm of German fighters had torn it apart. The plexiglass nose was shattered. The tail and rudder were shredded by cannon fire. One engine was dead, another was failing. Inside the fuselage, the scene was grim. The tail gunner was gone. Other crewmen were seriously wounded, struggling to tend to each other in the sub-zero temperatures. At the controls, 21-year-old Second Lieutenant Charlie Brown wrestled with the yoke. The bomber was heavy, sluggish, and barely responding. Every gust of wind threatened to send them into a fatal spin. They were alone, deep inside enemy territory and losing altitude. For Brown and his crew, it seemed like the end. That's when Franz Stigler arrived. He was a seasoned veteran, an ace with over 20 victories. His Messerschmitt Bf-109 was a lethal predator, one of the finest fighters of the war. He had just refueled and rearmed after a brutal dogfight and was climbing back into the sky when he saw the lone, crippled B-17. It was a perfect target, a sitting duck. He closed the distance, his hand tightening on the stick, his thumb near the trigger. This would be an easy kill, another victory cross painted on his tail. He lined up his sights on the bomber's wing root, the most vulnerable spot. One short, precise burst was all it would take to finish the job. The American plane was so damaged it couldn't even defend itself. Stigler moved in for the kill. But as he flew closer, something made him pause. The bomber was so shot up, he could see right through it. He saw the tail gunner's empty, blood-stained position. He could see the fear and desperation on the faces of the crew through the torn fuselage. The waist gunners were slumped over their weapons, clearly unable to fight back. He drew his aircraft level with the B-17's cockpit and looked across the short distance. He saw the pilot, Charlie Brown, fighting with the controls, his face a mask of exhaustion and determination. This wasn't combat anymore. This was an execution. The men inside were defenseless, their fate hanging by a thread. Stigler wasn't a hunter closing in on prey. He was an executioner about to pull the lever. A memory flashed through his mind. It was the voice of his first commanding officer, a man he respected deeply from the days of fighting in North Africa. His commander had told him, "You follow the rules of war for you, not for your enemy. You fight by the rules to keep your humanity." He had also given a stark warning. "If I ever see or hear of you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself." Stigler looked at the broken bomber. Its crew was as helpless as a man dangling from a parachute. To shoot them down now would be murder, not war. He faced a choice that would define him. He could follow his orders, add another kill to his record, and become a celebrated hero. Or he could follow his conscience. He took his thumb off the trigger. Instead of firing, Stigler did the unthinkable. He positioned his fighter on the bomber's left wing. He made eye contact with the stunned American pilot. He pointed down, trying to signal for them to land in Germany. Brown, confused and terrified, couldn't understand. Was this a trick? Stigler then pointed towards Sweden, a neutral country just a short flight away, a safe haven. The American crew, disoriented and wounded, just flew straight on. Stigler realized they were headed for the German coastline, directly towards a series of heavy anti-aircraft gun batteries. His own countrymen would shoot the bomber down. So, he stayed with them. He flew in formation, his fighter tucked close to the bomber. The presence of a German escort plane confused the gunners on the ground. They held their fire, assuming the bomber had been captured and was being escorted to a German airfield. Franz Stigler, the German ace, was now a guardian angel, protecting his enemy from his own side. He escorted the crippled B-17 all the way to the North Sea, to the edge of German-controlled airspace. Once they were over open water and clear of the coastal defenses, he knew they had a chance to make it back to England. He flew up alongside the cockpit one last time. He looked at Charlie Brown, raised his hand in a slow, deliberate salute, and then peeled his fighter away, banking back towards Germany. The American crew watched in stunned silence as the German plane disappeared. They had been given a second chance, against all odds. Charlie Brown managed to fly the shattered bomber across the North Sea and land it safely at their home base in England. Upon their return, Brown and his crew were debriefed. When he told his commanding officer what had happened, he was ordered to remain silent. The idea of a German pilot showing such mercy was unheard of, and Allied command didn't want a story that humanized the enemy circulating. It could damage morale. So the crew kept the secret. Across the channel, Franz Stigler landed his Bf-109 and never mentioned the incident to his superiors. He knew that if he reported sparing an enemy, he would be court-martialed and likely shot. For him, the risk of death was the price of his humanity. And so, for over 40 years, the incredible story of their encounter remained a secret, locked away in the memories of the men who lived it. Decades passed. The war ended. Charlie Brown, now a retired lieutenant colonel, was haunted by that day. Who was the pilot who had spared him? Why did he do it? He began a long and difficult search, writing to German veteran associations, placing ads in newsletters for former Luftwaffe pilots. For years, he found nothing. Then, in 1990, he received a letter from a man living in Canada. The letter began, "I was the one." It was from Franz Stigler. Stigler had seen his ad and remembered the date, the location, the unbelievable damage to the B-17. The two men spoke on the phone, and their stories matched perfectly. Later that year, they met in person. The two former enemies, the American bomber pilot and the German fighter ace, embraced like brothers. Their friendship would last for the rest of their lives. This story is more than just a remarkable wartime event. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times,